early on, I started out in like athletics. So I started out as a pro snowboarder, professional martial artist, gold medal martial artist, national, international championships. So I loved doing really extreme stuff early on, had a lot of energy and a lot of drive. And I was just curious, like, how far can I push my body? Which in turn taught me a lot about how far can I push my mind. Really just embrace being yourself fully, like embracing your eccentricity and your weirdness and your passions and your curiosities. I mean, someone might be like obsessed with butterflies, for example, and it's cool, it's butterflies, whatever, but they might discover some species of butterfly that somehow has something that's, could cure some disease in the world that no one ever discovered before. And that passion could lead them to that over time that can help so many people. And there's so many incredible stories in the world of that. And when I learned about like neuroplasticity and like neuromuscular connection, for example, I ran an experiment some years ago when I lived in Vancouver, where it was a muscle hacking experiment. I wanted to put on a bunch of muscle in a short period of time. A lot of people thought it couldn't be done and they couldn't do it naturally. I was like, I disagree. And so I designed a very intricate experiment for that. And I put on, a massive amount of muscle. I went from basically like 130-ish pounds lean, and I basically put on like 40 pounds of muscle in under 3 months. So the trim tab effect is really easy to understand. If you think about a big boat like the Titanic in the ocean, right? The ocean's pretty powerful. Big boats are pretty big and pretty heavy. Floating along the water, you need a big rudder to move the boat. Well, you need a lot of pounds per square inch leverage force to actually move that giant ship in the water and be able to turn on a dime. So that was a big engineering problem in sailing and boating for many, many years, generations. Until this guy was like, hey, I'm an engineer, I'm going to figure out how to make this easier. And the ocean's very powerful. So what if we were to put a little rudder on top of the big rudder? And if you have a little rudder there, you need a small wheel, one person can manage it. They turn the one wheel, it turns the little rudder at the top where there's, less surface tension, there's less energy there. What happens is the power of the ocean starts going over the rudder, and the power of the ocean naturally moves the rest of the giant rudder. Where's the trim tab effect in your life? Like, where can you apply the trim tab effect in your life to change a habit, to, display something, to destroy a habit in some ways, right? Many of those things apply to each of the areas in different domains of life, and they've, helped and supported success in various ways I define it over time, and they continue to. And they continue to build that. And it becomes more valuable, like with time you mentioned, is like we're time travelers. We really are. We have the ability as a species with our brains to project ourselves in the future, to project ourselves in the past, and to be here now, as the great Ram Dass would say, right? And meditation, mindfulness, breath work, yoga, these things really help us be here now. Physical fitness workouts, really great for that.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snider, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Well, and I think there's also that, again, the extremes, right? We say this in sports, nobody becomes high-level athlete without being a bit crazy, right? Quote unquote crazy, right? Thinking differently, not fitting into the norm. Because if you fit the norm, then you would be normal. You wouldn't be this extraordinary performer in whatever, right? I say athletics, but I think the same billionaires too. I know a few of them. They are very far from normal in varying ways, all very different. They don't think the same way as normal people. They can be quite challenging to be around, frankly, sometimes. But there is a reason that they outperform, and it's because they think about things differently. And so whether that is being more open-minded, more closed-minded, whatever it might be, I know some that in some ways I would call very closed-minded, which was very surprising because I'm I don't know any successful people that are so closed-minded about something, but it works for that person, right? And then I know other ones where I'm damn, that's a real open-minded approach, but it works for them. And so I think, I love what you're saying about that. Speaking of frameworks, I know that, I've heard you talk about a couple of different frameworks, and I think one of them was PMI framework, and then the other one was around, not so much a framework, but humanized metrics, which you alluded to in the very early minutes of this conversation. How have you come to those? How have they played in? How do they drive your approach?
Yeah, so PMI simply stands for positive measurable impact. The original inspiration came from some time I got invited, it's a long story, but the short version is I got invited to the world premiere of the second documentary in a series by a brilliant man named Ray Kurzweil. And, he invented the flatbed scanner and reading machine for the blind and Kurzweil Technologies, pianos, keyboards, music industry. He's an inventor. He's a futurist. He's written some great books. He's into longevity and health. Google basically said, hey, we'll give you a whole bunch of, fun finances and resources and brilliant people to work with. And, he did some cool stuff and might still be doing with Google, to innovate and just create new solutions in different ways. And, being there is at Singularity University, which is a really cool thing that a friend of mine is a founder of. And in that, I'm hanging around seeing these people work on problems that we're not going to experience for 80 to 100 to 500 years. They were really projecting the future, right? You go through one level and they have a 3D printing lab, and this girl's at the thing. It's like printing stuff out. And I was like, oh, what's that? And she's like, oh, I'm trying to create replicators where we can print, a machine that can print all of its own components to print itself, right? And it's like replicators from like sci-fi films. I'm like, whoa! And she's creating a 3-dimensional spine. She's like, yeah, and right now I'm just testing it out to create, spine to help with spinal surgeries. And I'm like, that's super cool, right? And on the walls, they have things like, what are the logistics and legalities of crimes in space, right? And it's like, what happens if this crime we have a law for on Earth happens in outer space at some point, if we're on the moon or on Mars or something, right? And so they were thinking bigger than, at the time, almost anyone I knew. And I know a lot of big, brilliant thinkers, thankfully. And these people were just some of the most brilliant people from around the world in their domains, all brought to one place at Singularity University to think about these problems ahead of time. So it's really cool to know that people are thinking about those things. And just being around them, I was so inspired about things. I'm like, they're all working towards making an impact in some way. It tends to be positive, and a lot of them have the concept of measuring them. So the whole concept of positive measurable impact was something inspired from there that I then took into my business. So at the time, it was Young and Raw. It was a health company. Started my health journey, transformed my health. Friends saw me from one event to another, like, wow, I lost 60 pounds. Obviously it's a visible difference from the last time they saw me. And they asked me how I did it. I had clearer skin, better focus, better control my ADHD. I just improved and optimized in a lot of ways. I felt better, looked better, performed better. So like, how did you do that? They wanted to know. So I started sharing. And then more people asked. They got results, they shared it, it kind of rippled out. And started getting overwhelming. I can't keep up with all the text messages. I'm like, guys, I got to put you on an email list. Sorry, I can't handle all this manually. So just put together an email list and started sharing with that, newsletter and stuff. And eventually that grew to be very large. And then all of a sudden I'm like, we need to do a blog and put this together. And I started coming with ideas for it with at the time my partner I was doing it with. And so we get into it. I build a blog and put it together. And it's like, hey, maybe we can have people write for us. There's a lot of brilliant people out there. Put a write for us tab on the top, and our traffic started going up. And we eventually started getting millions of visits to the blog every month. And we did some incredible things with that, and our programs took off, were very successful, scaled significantly, and we had a lot of great feedback from people how it was impacting their lives and their health, and their relationships, their businesses, everything. And I noticed that I was happier, I was more inspired, I was more motivated by hearing someone tell a story about how drinking green smoothies help them have more energy and they can play with their kids better. And like, that was beautiful to me. So I'm logging into the metrics dashboard, what I call the cold metrics of business, of traffic and conversions, for example, in the business in the morning. But I find myself being drawn to like, hey, let me check the inbox for support and see if, I help someone, see if our programs help change the life of someone for the better, that positive measurable impact. So I created this framework because I noticed its effect on myself, and I was wondering, going through team building and stuff, I was wondering if it would help my team understand that whatever department they were in, whatever they were doing in the company, how their efforts led to positive measurable impact. So I started meditating on this question. It's like, how will my efforts positively and measurably impact the lives of 1 billion people? I set the goal pretty high. It was maybe 8 billion of us now or so. I was like, let me start at 1, right? It seems like a conservative place to start. And so meditating on that, I started gathering these stories of people, type 2 diabetics not needing their insulin anymore. People losing a lot of weight. So I started calculating and measuring how much collective weight. Like, I lost 10 pounds. I lost 25 pounds. I lost 60 pounds. I started just tagging that and just looking at those numbers and adding them up. And I was like, whoa, 1,000 pounds, 5,000 pounds, like 100,000 pounds. You're like, this is crazy when you have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers. It all adds up in beautiful ways. And each one is an individual life that's connected to other lives. And they were helping share with their friends and family as well. So I knew the ripple impact went out further from there. So I just started putting it together. It originally started as Google Docs, which is very simple. Then I got into spreadsheets and some other fun things. And I was just like sharing it with my team. I just, I share it with a meeting. I have customer support and have, tech and dev and everybody on there. And I just like, hey guys, I just want to start the meeting off today and just want to appreciate you all in these ways because, if you're in dev and developing things, if you're in design and making something beautiful, if you're in customer support and you're handling, a challenging, frustration from a customer who's doing a detox and doesn't feel very well from it at first, because that happens, or trying to tell people what the difference between a juice and a smoothie was, which is one of our top FAQs, by the way. Almost everyone, what's the difference between a juice and a smoothie? I wanted them to know from the top how each of their energy was contributing to the collective organization and how that was impacting people in positive and measurable ways. And when I did that, I noticed a massive transformation in each of them on the team, in their levels of productivity. They showed up early, they showed up on time, they did amazing work, they focused more on it, they came up with more ideas, they put their all into it. They really just came together and they're like, wow, we're actually helping people and it feels good to help others. For some people. Thankfully, I had a lot of people who are like that. And I noticed just productivity went through the roof. And then as a result, the natural emergent property of that was the business was growing and scaling even further. And as I saw the focus on PMI metrics, the humanized metrics, were being looked at more, I noticed the cold metrics increasing. I noticed the traffic going up. I noticed the sales conversions increasing. I noticed running more split tests to learn more things to improve sales pages or ads or campaigns. And that really was a beautiful experience to go through, helping grow and scale that company that I built with that and everyone that was involved. And then when I exited that company, I was like, I'm going to keep this framework. And then others asked me to, hey, can you teach this to me? Can you teach this to my team? So I was like, yeah, sure. So I just went and I started teaching it to others. And I found that almost every company, everything that anyone builds, you can actually somehow identify what your metrics are for that. How do you help others? How do you define success? A lot of people use money as a measuring stick. That's one metric. But, how many lives are you changing in some way? What problems are you solving? What value are you creating? And money is a byproduct of value creation. So it's a really helpful framework to understand and also motivate from a human level, from the heart. And not just from these metrics are looking good, or we're hitting KPI and everything too, which a lot of people can get stuck in and burnt out on. And also I find similar to technology can stop the empathy centers of the brain. If you're looking at a screen or trolls on social media, whatever it might be, a lot of the psychology of that is because it's different when we're face to face versus when we're on a screen. And the same thing applies in business. If you're focused on, more profitability at all costs, well, you start to cut corners. A lot of people do. Like, oh, we can cheapen out of that. We can save money here. Versus, how can we keep the highest quality thing here that might be expensive? What else can we do to get a net benefit result that is a higher compounding rate than, giving up on the cutting of this cost, right? They're both important. But what are your core values? You got to identify your core values, understand your own integrity of yourself as a leader, of your team, the team members, and the organization as a whole. So that's really important. And that framework I've shared with many on stages and around the world. I've been on podcasts about it and stuff too. And it's beautiful when people choose to implement that in some way, shape, or form. Typically results pretty beautiful, profound, and it helps them help others at scale, which I love.
I love that. And I think you're referring to how you help use humanized metrics, but it's also cascading KPIs, right? It's what's the mission of the company and how do I understand what my widget contributes to that, which I am a very, very big fan of, but you have put it more beautifully and eloquently. But you've also really alluded to what drives you as well, right? And I like to talk about wealthy leadership, which is just my branded version of success on your terms. And you've kind of brought this up in a few of the things that you've been talking about. Really, there is like a societal program, and there are a lot of boxes you can tick, and you can do those. And then what, right? Like you can do those and have anxiety because you're constantly thinking about the future, have depression because you're stuck in the past, whatever version of, fulfillment in the present is just not there for you. And so I'm a huge proponent, and as with most things, because I've also gone through it, of really, just like in a business, if you don't define success, you can't measure your progress towards it. In our lives, if we don't define success for ourselves, then it is very hard to know whether or not you've achieved it. And emotions are data, and they're not everything, but they're, an important part of data about how you feel. But I think there's also, we are always looking for fulfillment. And so if you're not clear on what it is you're trying to achieve, then it's hard to know whether you are achieving it. And we're all kind of achievement oriented in one way or another. So I always like to ask, and you've given us, insights into it, but what is success on your term? What is wealthy leadership in regards to your business, but in the bigger picture of your life today?
One deserves a nice long pause to really think about and extract.
Absolutely.
So I'll answer this as, speaking of Joseph Campbell, we mentioned earlier, he had one of those similar quotes that got famous, follow your bliss. And when he got towards the end of his life on his deathbed, he's like, you know what? I was wrong about that. He's like, I need to add something to that, which is follow your bliss and your grunt. And that, again, changes the entire perception of what that means. Because if you follow your bliss blindly, I've watched a lot of people follow their bliss. I've followed my bliss in different ways, too. I've tried it out. I'm like, whoop, that didn't really work out so well. It was fun for a little while, and then, whoops, the map is not the territory. And understanding, like, how to define success for oneself, like, in terms of, climbing a mountain, for example. It's about the journey, not the destination. Well, sometimes it's about the destination. You've got to set a destination to go to. I want to climb this peak, right? And you go there. And a lot of the evolution and the growth occurs along the journey.
Yeah. You might go through hell to get where you want. But if you go through hell and end up somewhere you don't want, then
yeah, it's like there's they're both true. And climbing mountains and stuff too. I used to climb Camelback Mountain in Scottsdale, Arizona. Beautiful views. There's a great workout in the morning and stuff. I do parkour stuff, flipping down the rocks, on the way down. It was crazy. It was so fun. But I just noticed that you can climb a mountain to the top, which is the goal of climbing this peak. And when you get there, you can really enjoy the view and really enjoy that, right? And for me, it's enjoying it with friends. I can enjoy it myself, but I can also enjoy it with friends too, which is really fun. And you can enjoy that accomplishment. You put in the work, you put in the effort, you got to the top, you made it. Enjoy that. And then look onwards to the next peak you want to climb, to the next journey. And the hero's journey in Joseph Campbell's framework is not just one hero's journey. There's one level of that. The other level is that life is made up of, smaller hero's journeys within a grander hero's journey. And when you understand that, you're building this business right now, for example, this is your hero's journey now, and you're going to go through that cycle. And it's really helpful to understand that cycle so you can make it through those challenging pathways and get to success as you define it. And then you realize, maybe this is your one and only. If that's your type and you want to do that and do that one thing forever, there's a power to that focus. And if that's who you are and how you're wired, go for it. And if not, if you're a multi-talented, ADD entrepreneur, it's got a lot of energy, A-type personality, and you can pivot and jump around and everything, that's totally cool too. Then just be like, okay, this is my hero's journey now, and I might have another one another time. And that's totally okay. And to define success for yourself in that way. So for me, a lot of it's just cranking up that PMI framework metric. It's like, how can I help more people in different ways? And there's many ways I can do that. So I define it specifically to what I work in and direct my energy towards. But I know that, for everyone that I can help reverse mineral deficiencies, for example, with, nanominerals, I know that that's going to help them become the best version of themselves. And it ties back to my original one around food and wellness, with Young and Raw. A lot of it was very focused around helping people heal their relationship with food, with real food. There's a lot of processed fake food out there. There's a lot of chemicals, a lot of toxins. Detox is one of the highest leverage areas to start in your health. And so I focused on that. I saw people's transformation, and I just looked at that and be like, okay, well, the more people I help heal their relationship with food, to love it more, to appreciate it, to be less stressed about it. And, if you have a croissant for breakfast in the morning, like we were talking about earlier, don't beat yourself up over it, because the cortisol spike from beating yourself up is going to be worse for you than just enjoying fully and presently that croissant, right? So again, it's the common pattern that arises throughout my personal journey, and I think everyone has their own version of this. As we say in Spanish, lo mismo pero diferente, same but different, right? And in that dynamic, I'm like, okay, wow. The healthier people are, the happier they are, better performing they are, more energy they have, the more of their brain they have access to, the more they enhance neurogenesis. If you work out more, you're going to build new neurons and grow them. If you take lion's mane supplement, it's going to help with neurogenesis, right? You get some BDNF, growth factors in there. You're going to grow some new neurons and wire your brain up. If you develop new skills, you do hard things. That's how we grow, right? The act of building muscle is tearing down what you have and destroying it, and then giving yourself the time and the minerals and the nutrients to rebuild it to be stronger. That's the evolutionary way. And so you can embrace that dynamic, you can be successful at anything you put your mind to. And like someone, Alex Hormozy, for example, shout out to Alex, he's incredible, him and Layla. They really help popularize something very brilliant and wise, which I'll love to give them credit for, which is, reps beat luck 100% of the time. And it's true, physiologically, first principles. If you just keep at it, you keep going through it, you do more tests, you send more emails, you build more technology, you squash more bugs, whatever it might be, just keep at it, right? New health trends, you try new things. Eventually you'll pick up little things here and there. You'll pick up the gold nuggets, the tidbits along the way that you'll add up into your own custom framework. And a core part of my operating system growing up in martial arts, I was obsessed with Bruce Lee. And he has the, Jeet Kune Do is his form of martial arts. And there's a book called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And it just, as a kid in martial arts, loving his movies and everything, this always stuck with me as part of my core operating system, which is, take the best, leave the rest, and add what is uniquely your own. And that applied to business, health, relationships, whatever it might be, whatever you're building. Are you building muscle? Are you building a team? Are you building AI? Are you building an app? Are you building a bridge? Are you building a house? Are you building a plane? You're building a jet ski. It doesn't matter what you're building. You can apply it there, right? Difference and distinction between process and content. So you build those things, you define that success, what lights you up and what helps you get where you want to go. And as the world changes, how do you keep up with that over time? Ideally, stay human as the technology advances, because it conflicts sometimes. If you can stay true to who you are and understand and embrace that, regardless of what other people think in a lot of ways, you can accomplish building incredible things that eventually could change the world.
And for you, I'm curious, you've talked about kind of, I think, what drives you, which I love and absolutely resonate with, right? I always say impact gets me out of bed in the morning. What is kind of most important to you, maybe personally? Because it's like personally, professionally, maybe it's the same thing. Has that changed in terms of like maybe trade-offs that you're willing to make, not willing to make,
Hugely.
Okay.
Hugely, yeah. Massive changes all throughout like the entire, hero's journey of my own life of sorts. Super extroverted, I'm technically an extrovert, right? I've become a little bit more introverted over the years. I enjoy spending more time in my own energy. I love my friends. I love time out. And I love, going to events and shows and traveling the world, all these great things. And I also really love my time to myself. And it could be in nature. It could be playing piano. It could be studying Spanish. It could be playing chess. I could be reading a book. I could just be meditating, relaxing. I could take a nap. I really enjoy those things. So it's those things, doing more of those things are sort of metrics of how I identify success at a personal level. Right. In business, you have metrics of business, profitability, revenue, sales, customers, orders, whatever you want to put those metrics into. I have a whole set of those that I work with as well. How many people we help, and there's another part of that too in the PMI framework. And just like there's this grand mystery of life. I'm so curious. I want to know all the things I can possibly know, but I want to live a beautiful life as I define it, as I said it, which changes over time. And managing my energy, going into like routine sets you free, for example, is a weird thing for me. That growing up, I hated routine. And as I get older, I'm like, wow, routine does really set you free in some ways, because when I wake up early and I go to yoga, it transforms my entire day. When I don't, I notice the difference. When I wake up and I meditate first thing in the morning, it transforms my whole day. When I don't, I notice. I notice the difference, the contrast. And doing more of the things that feel good, not being too strict or militant, because I was for a very long time, food-wise, for example, which had great benefits, but took a mental, psychological toll on me, and you go through it. It's like, let it all go and just like have some fun. And just playing around with different approaches, you start to find your own way. And that's what I define as success is, what gifts and talents am I here with? What can I develop? What can I put my energy into? What's the feedback loop? What lights me up? And it could be something as, simple as a beautiful butterfly in nature. You're walking around, or it can see the smile on a child's face on the beach. Saw a cute kid having fun today, and a dog playing with its ball, right? Or it could be, doing a product launch and reaching 100,000 people, or doing something like that, right? I have many different ways to define it, but they're for me. So when I do that, manage my energy, how do I show up in my daily life, in my relationships, my romantic relationship, my family relationship, my friends' relationships, my team, leading my team and my business, working with clients, consulting, coaching, whatever it might be. How am I learning and growing while I help others to learn and grow that are choosing to be on that path themselves, and being okay with others who are on a different path that maybe they're choosing something else. Again, surrendering to that flow feels a lot better. More flow states. Again, less friction, more flow.
Do you think, is that the secret to squeezing the best juice out of life?
It's a secret I stumbled upon that's working pretty well so far. And I'm curious, I think there's more secrets that are, unknown. Maybe some others, I've learned some others too. I'm looking forward to learn those as well. It's always being a student, always learning, always growing. I know you can accomplish more. And at the same time, how can you accomplish it feeling satisfied? Feeling fulfilled. And I have my own ways to define that. And I encourage you to identify those for yourself too.
Would you share how you define that? Can you?
Yeah. Clarify that. Ask the question again.
So you said defining satisfaction and fulfillment, and you have ways that you define that for yourself. And I'm wondering, and then you said kind of encouraging people to do that. But I think for a lot of people, that's a nebulous topic.
It can be. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying it. So, as a generator in human design, there's a not self theme and like a true self theme, right? A signature. You have a strategy. And as a generator, a strategy is to respond. And it could be to anything. It could be the birds chirping, the butterfly flying, the cute kid smiling on the beach, playing around, the dog chasing the ball, noise in the environment, your own internal structure, your gut making a funny sound, and maybe it means you're hungry. So there's many ways to respond. So learning to respond and to act in response has been really helpful. But to go through and realize like what lights me up, what triggers the happy chemicals in my brain, right? Like what gives me some dopamine, some serotonin, some oxytocin, what gets me that anandamide boost, the bliss molecule, which is a critical part of flow states, for example. And I find it in different ways. In sports, you can tap into it naturally because the environment, shapes that in a lot of ways. But in life, it's like, how do I feel? How am I showing up? Right? So I tap into my energy and how am I responding in different ways like that. And understanding the distinction between the not self theme for generators is frustration. Huge game changer for me. So when I discovered that, I realized that people would ask me, they'd be like, are you okay? Are you angry? Or I'm like, no, I'm not angry at all. I'm focused or something, right? Is that I get frustrated. But it's an interesting feedback loop because, systems thinking and being solutions oriented, I get a lot of satisfaction out of resolving the frustration. So if I'm frustrated with a challenge, I'm going through and I'm trying to figure out a way to go over, under, around, or through, or create some new way to bridge the gap to get from frustration to satisfaction. And so whether it's a small thing or a big thing or a medium-sized thing in business, for example, doesn't matter what it might be, if I get frustrated with it, I know I'm on the right track and it leads to satisfaction. So I find ways to be satisfied. If I'm eating food, how can I eat food that aligns with not having a lot of allergens, not having a lot of toxicity, still delicious, right? That for my palate and my nervous system, my brain, triggers a lot of happy chemicals. And I feel very satisfied with my meal. I digest better, I feel better, I get more energy out of my food, I sleep better, right? A funny one from last night, currently as we record this, it is the Geminid meteor shower. And around 11 p.m. Eastern time, you can see this really beautiful cosmic show in the sky. And I just went out to the golf course across from my place, and I just stood under the stars for hours, just staring up, to the point where my neck got sore. It was like, oh, do a lot of yoga, but still craning up your neck like that, laying down, like seeing it all and seeing all these beautiful shooting stars. That brought me so much satisfaction. I felt so much gratitude. I felt so much appreciation. It's like, wow, this is beautiful, right? So zooming out, zooming in, from macro to micro, the fractal nature of nature. So seeing these patterns and tapping into, recognizing the synchronicities. I get little hits of dopamine, little hits of bliss, so to speak. And it tends to lead me in some beautiful ways. And then sometimes I want to go a different direction. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But as long as I keep going, keep playing the game, and I identify and be okay with the cycle of frustration to satisfaction, the more I play with that, the more satisfied I become day in, day out through whatever it is I'm applying my energy to.
That's a really helpful breakdown. And I really love how much the back and forth we're doing between kind of science and human design and things, because I know for me, as someone who came from math and really overly pragmatic, frankly, when I learned that my not self theme is bitterness, right? And so for anyone who's listening who doesn't know human design, which I didn't until a few years ago, more now that I'm realizing, time flies. Your not self theme is the concept that you kind of have a design, a way you move through the world, like the strategy, right? So as a projector, I need to be invited. I haven't gone out and looked for jobs that much. Things come up and then it really works. And if I have to really force something, it doesn't usually work out super well. So when you're not kind of living in your design, you're not self theme, for me, it's bitterness. And when I learned, frankly, it wasn't even when I learned it. I learned it a long time ago, and then I just moved on with my life. But
that's cool. Next.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, woo-woo person. Nice coffee. See you never. Sorry. So when I relearned it and started to take stock of life through this one of many lenses that I use to look at my life, and very recently there was something where I thought, wow, I've gone through this really big year. I've gone through a lot. My life is really great. I've left a lot of things behind. I've understood a lot of things. And then I realized there's this one thing in my life, and I'm just real bitter about it when it comes up, when I have to work on it, when I got to deal with it, I get really bitter. And I was like, oh, and I didn't realize it right away. I was like, oh, this is the only thing in my life I complain about. It's got to go. I got to resolve it, right? And then I realized, oh, it's not just I complain about this thing, because I don't, I'm like, do something about it, or accept that you can't, or, the Alcoholics Anonymous saying, right? The wisdom to
know the difference, yeah.
to know the difference, But I started to realize, oh, it is really a bitterness that comes up around this area of my life. And I need to do something with it. And it's so interesting listening to you talk, because I was like, oh, in my head, I was like, I gotta just remove this from my life. But I am also a big problem solver. And part of the bitterness is that I can't make this thing better because so many of the variables are outside of my control. And so I find it very frustrating because I am not able to leverage myself and my skills in an optimal way in this particular context, because too many of the variables are beyond my reach and my control. And I'm not really I guess I'm just not willing to then operate suboptimally for an unforeseeable, undefinable amount of time. So I'm like, okay, the way that I can solve for this is to create milestones, exits, whatever that might be. And so, but really love that this is kept coming up. And I think that there's a lot of benefit, you said routine sets you free. So I say structure sets you free. I'm like, fuck the rules, but structure sets you free. And I think what we're talking about is just different structures and different frameworks through which to evaluate, and everyone will find the way that works for them. But I'm curious, after all these things I've asked you about success and learning and journey and, what will you trade off, what won't you trade off anymore? You could argue that the opposite of success is failure. And I don't think probably either of us would fully agree with that statement. But how do you think failure factors into that journey?
Hugely. It happens. You got to go through it. And again, the spectrum lens and framework is, it's on a spectrum. There's failures that are, no big deal, right? You knock a glass over when you're washing the dishes and it crashes on the ground, and pretty low risk. Maybe clean it up before somebody cuts their foot, but at the same time, you can go out and buy new glass, right? If you are Laird Hamilton surfing, a giant 120-foot wave, if he moves his pinky toe the wrong way in a microsecond, his life could end. And the risks there are significantly greater, than the former. So failure happens. Like you have to break things, get to figure things out like that. And it's a challenging thing in society in general, in life in general. Some people beat themselves up a lot about failure, and some don't care at all, and they just go through and they fail fast. They fail a lot. And usually, again, the reps beat luck thing. If you try at something, Edison and the light bulb, for example, figured out 1,000 ways to make the light bulb not work, right? And then, eventually came across the one that did. So, like, it's a process. It's a feeling. Like, one of the things I've come to learn is, like, we have the spectrum of emotions and feelings as human beings, all this chemistry, and it modulates in different ways. A lot's within our control, and some is not, right? Mm-hmm. And it's yin-yang. It's a very dualistic nature of nature. By the way, the work of Byron Katie, I highly recommend. She has a really great distinction of like what kind of business you're in, and she has her own framework for it. Teach their own. But are you in God's business? Are you in other people's business? Or are you in your own business? And it's like, if it's storming outside, you gonna change the weather? Like, I mean, maybe these days some weather modification out there. Who knows? Maybe they're trying to, but still, usually probably best not to bother with that, not to worry about it. Just plan accordingly. Take an umbrella or enjoy walking in the rain. Dancing in the rain, kissing in the rain, whatever it might be. And then other people's business. A lot of people are into other people's business. And it's an interesting one to work. And I found the more I get at other people's business, the happier I am, the more peace I feel, and the less drama occurs. I'm kind of allergic to drama as well. And, if you have your own business, that's something you can do something about. And to understand like what's in your control, what's not, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's the one you can develop over time. And when it comes to like integrity of engineering and structures, like there's a right way to build a bridge where it stays up, and there's a wrong way to build it where it's going to fall. So there's a level, like a kind of simulation, game theory of the universe kind of thing. There's some base level physics to understand just enough about to be very identifying what is failure, what is success, right? If it's a business and you're launching a new product, are people buying it or are they not? Right? Then you go through, is it advertising? Is it your marketing? Is it the product itself? Is it a manufacturing issue? Is it a logistical problem of getting from point A to point B to the customer? If it's online distribution, early in the blog days, servers were a thing. We started getting so much traffic to our early blog that it burnt the servers out. And you're like, whoa, site crashed. Uh-oh, something failed, right? And at that time, that was a big thing. If it failed, you're not processing transactions, people aren't reading your blog, you're not getting traffic, Google, de-ranks, de-indexes you, whatever it might be. Okay, cool. And I go in and figure out how to get better servers to handle more load, to increase the bandwidth, increase the capacity, to handle more weight, basically, of the traffic. Right. And so that failed. And then you can go some way, you can make it succeed, right? So you keep going and growing in those ways. And it's a really brilliant, I can't remember the name to give him credit, some Japanese automaker or something I heard about in a book where they talked about this law of threes in nature, where every time something triples, something breaks. Mm-hmm. And the simple way to understand it is like if you're running a sales team, for example, and phone system, if you triple the amount of calls incoming, well, the phone system is going to need an upgrade, right? If you triple the amount of bookings on your calendar, well, there's only so much time in a day. That's a real limitation. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year, right? So we have these guardrails of physics and integrity of structures and the first principles to operate from, which I find super useful. And something I alluded to you saying earlier is your Carpe Diem statement. There's the perspective, like the hedonist kind of perspective of just like, screw it, let's do it kind of thing. And there's like, what do I need to do? Now it needs to be done. It's a good mantra for like staying productive and focused on that. Two sides of the same coin, to the two interpretations of the same phrase. Both are true, right? At the same time, if you zoom out, in history, for example, there's a saying that from historians studying structure of history and culture development over time, that nations are born Stoic and they die Epicurean. And I found that to be a very interesting high-level overview of like, wow, how am I operating at that zooming in to my own life, and you can understand, like, in my opera, I love stoicism, so it's super fun to get
Can
into.
you break that down really? Because me too. But I just want to break that down. If someone's listening and doesn't know Stoicism and Epicureanism, can
Yeah, so
you?
Stoicism, is sort of an interesting philosophy of sorts. Marcus Aurelius is one of the more well-known names in that. Is one of the most powerful people on planet Earth at the time he was ruling. And when you read his notes, it's literally like his notes from his notebooks, translated over time. He would do very interesting things, and one that always stuck out to me, was he would go out into his kingdom. He would go out into the streets, and he would wear rags, and he would eat the scantest of fare, and he would be amongst the people that he was responsible for. To remind him, he's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, I have all these people in my court that are telling me I need to send my troops over here to take over this land. Why? Is it important? How's it going to help these people? How is it to live this way? To feel hunger, to feel pain, right? To feel struggle, to feel resistance. And I found that an incredible level of awareness for someone back in that time. It's, again, spanning through the history of time. There's always someone somewhere that's thinking differently. And clearly how he was thinking differently led to some very interesting historical outcomes in those ways. Alexander the Great, same way. He thought very differently about battle, about warfare. A-player, hard charger, some crazy stories. You study Alexander the Great in his biographies.
Yeah.
And Epicurean is very much related to hedonism, which is lots of wine, lots of food, lots of sex, lots of great fun, lots of parties, lots of amazing things. We live in a world that's a mix of all those things. And it depends, if you're a party planner, well, hey, party it up, because the better parties you throw, the more successful you'll be. Failure is nobody showing up to your party in that case, right? But if you're someone who's going to a lot of parties and you're not getting your work done, or you're not building something that you want to build for some deeper reasons that you can explore if you like, where are you putting your energy, your time, and your focus, right? If you're staying out late at night and you're not getting great sleep, how are you performing the next day? Because that all adds up and compounds over time, right? And so then you talk about the trade-offs. You trade off certain things. I love going out to dinner with my friends. I absolutely love great food. I'm a crazy foodie. Love being with my friends and with my community. Your vibe attracts your tribe, and I have thankfully, some incredible high vibe people in my life, such as yourself. Appreciate you greatly. And being able to go out to have dinners is wonderful. I was out with one of my best friends having sushi the other night, and it was great. But we went out at a time where we were enjoying some delicious sushi, but we couldn't make it back to the sauna in time. So that was a trade-off, And if I'm going through the nice and sauna detox protocol, right, we do the sauna quite often. But some nights, I want to go enjoy having dinner with a friend, hearing about his day, his experience, what he's going through, his business and his personal life, whatever it might be, and connecting at that human level. That really fills me up. It's very fulfilling in that way. If I do that every single night, well, I'm not going to the sauna, I'm not getting good sleep, which leads into yoga, not going to yoga, or not meditating. Again, there's always the trade-offs. And I find when I focus on, self-care in a lot of ways, path of self-mastery, I find that I do better day to day, and I'm able to have more energy to help more people. And that fills me up and fuels me. For others, they have different motivational styles. So again, no judgment. It's just more like, who are you? Why do you do what you do? And what do you define as failure? What do you define as success? Sometimes it's easy to. Sometimes you got to, chew on it a little bit. You got to figure out, like, okay, what really does this mean? How will we know when we're successful? How will we know when we fail, when we pivot? Advertising, marketing is a great example. You have a campaign you're going, it either makes money or it doesn't. If you send an email campaign, for example, how many are you sending? How many people get it? Deliverability. How many people open them? Open rate. How many people click on things? Your CTR, click-through rate. And out of those people that click that link that goes somewhere that ideally leads to a transaction, how many people buy your thing or your stuff, or hire you for coaching, whatever it might be? That's a really beautiful way to measure success and or failure, right? But if you send one email campaign and it flops, you're like, oh, email doesn't work. You never do it again. I don't know. There's a lot of people doing really good with email even today, right? So it's a backbone. It's like when you stick around. And marketing, advertising campaign is like how much money you put in, how much money you get out, what's your ROI, what's your ROAS, you calculate these things out. It's really cool. So if you don't know where to start, go to things that you can measure. Like, what can you measure to start, right? In health and fitness, you can measure your weight on a scale, but it's also a bit of a false metric. Because if you're just weighing yourself, well, muscle and fat both weigh certain amounts, right? So you can change your body composition. That's why I like DEXA scans, for example, or in-body scanners, easier to find at gyms and stuff, a little more accessible for more people. So if you understand your bone density, you understand, how much percentage of muscle do you have, how many pounds of muscle mass, how many pounds of body fat, what kind of body fat. You go deeper in the layers of nuance and distinction, you start to learn more, and you can start adjusting things in your lifestyle to get different results.
Yeah. I love that you just said nuance, because that is the word that was looping in my brain as you were talking about this, is the, I don't know, learning maturity to understand the nuance. What you said, right, about countries where they start and where they fail, and the party planner example, I love it because it's just so clear. Okay, you want to build a reputation as an incredible party planner, you need to be able to throw a great party on repeat. That's a metric, right? That's an awareness, traction. But if you are partying at those and you're, for lack of a better word, getting high on your own supply, and you can't show up to a meeting the next day, you can't manage your vendors during the event, you will ruin your reputation very quickly. And so there's nuances to what throwing a good party means, right? Mm-hmm. Like throwing it versus participating in it. It might be that you have to be at events first. But even to your point, with the dinner, I was thinking you were going to talk about how much you love to go out and eat good food and food that aligns with you and not have alcohol, right? You talked about sauna, mm-hmm. Love that. Also a trade-off. But the nuance of what, being someone who is very active socially, there's flavors of mm-hmm. that, right? And the one that works for you, obviously alcohol, there is a baseline cost to it, but people process it differently as well. People's schedules are different. What time in the day you drink, whether you drink, what you drink, those are all nuances. And I would argue that you have to have a big enough structure to start with, that there are certain components, but then the further along you get, I think the more nuance there is, and the more you learn, the more you can discern and play with those, levers of nuance.
Yeah, you develop a skill set. You identify other patterns, you see other things, and you start seeing new perspectives and new angles. Right? Yeah. Like, Ken Wilber, for example, brilliant dude. Check out his books for sure. He leans on some spiral dynamics and a lot of other cool theories. But one of the cool things that stuck out about his work to me was that, his definition of enlightenment, for example. And his definition of enlightenment is not like the Buddhists or the yogis or anything else like that. Everybody's got their own version. His was the ability to take on multiple perspectives. And if you think about it from a physics perspective of light, there's some optical illusions out there where you look at it from one perspective, it's a circle. You look at it from a different perspective, it's a square. It's the same shape, but it's the perspective you're looking at. And to understand that in your own life, like looking at it from different perspectives. How do I see this? The eye of the eye that's seeing this. How do others see this, right? And then who matters in that way, right? Who matters in that really? How people think about you in different ways does matter to a degree. That is true. But it doesn't matter as much as you might think. And that's an interesting challenge to take on. So when you look at the trade-offs, you understand the deeper nuances and distinctions of, if I drink, I go out and I party, have a good time, I enjoy some mezcal or some tequila or whatever it might be, and you get loose and liquid courage, they call it, right? For example, I don't process alcohol very well at all. I've got a very interesting liver. I process things incredibly rapidly, but alcohol is not one of them. I feel terrible when I drink, and I love the flavors, right? But I don't enjoy how I feel, so I choose not to drink. And it's never had a problem with it. I don't have anything against it. I just know that it's not going to help me move towards something that I want to achieve in my life or my health or my goals. It's going to move me away from it, right? Are we, like Abraham Maslow, is a big influence of mine too. Are we stepping, forward into growth, or are we stepping back into safety? And asking yourself that helps you, see those new perspectives and those nuances, the distinctions of things, because you can go really deep into it. You got to be mindful, and you can play with it, juggle it, whatever it might be. But are you getting the results you want to get? And if you track it over time in some way, shape, or form, you measure it. You can ask yourself and check in and review, am I being successful or am I failing at something I'm looking to achieve? Don't make it mean anything about you. It's just a matter of if you want to do hard things and get the results, you can, reps beat luck. But if you want to go out and party and have fun with your friends, then enjoy that. That's great. But if you start gaining weight and losing muscle and being tired, well, there's a reason for that. And just own it. Like either own it and just do that, or you do something about it to change.
Right.
And then you feel different, right?
Yeah. I mean, perspective is interesting because for the most part, it's gained over time, sometimes through intensity, but over time. So if you were looking back at, Caleb, who was starting Young and Raw or whatever, another stage, is there something you wished you were knowing when you were scaling that business through the different stages?
So many things. So many things. Yeah. One is it doesn't have to be as hard as everyone makes it out to be. That was a really big one for me. Success can be easy. Building things can be easy. There is struggle, there is resistance. There's a lot of that comes up, the up and down. There might be burnout, there might not be. But shifting perspective of asking yourself, like, I ask myself this more and more. It's like, how how could it be great? How could it be easy? How could it be more flow, less friction? Just asking myself those questions, like our OI is prompting, just like AI is. If you garbage in, garbage out, right? Gold in, gold out. So if you go through and you understand how to prompt yourself, right? That's one thing that I have a lot of fun with AI stuff is prompt architecture is cornerstone of success or failure with AI. Use that and apply that to your OI, your organic intelligence. Apply it to yourself, because the brain is a solution-seeking pattern recognition machine to keep you alive and to reproduce, to ship your DNA into the future, right? So if you focus on that and you ask yourself these questions, like, a lot of people will dread the result of something they make up in their mind when, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to happen. Sometimes it will, maybe the one, right? Catastrophizing, right? And we're really good at it. And oftentimes, the smarter, more intelligent you are, the more variables you consider, and the more catastrophizing is easy to fall into naturally. And again, it's a survival response. It's an evolutionary mechanism that's there to protect us. And you need to learn how to wield it, and wield it wisely, because it can throw you off track sometimes. So yeah, that was like success doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be struggle. It can be easy. It can flow. And for example, we did a lot of hard things in that business that were challenging. But there's one deal in particular, in partnership that we did with an app developer. So I built the 30-day green smoothie challenge. It's one of the maybe been the first at its time. And I was like thinking, what's the highest leverage thing I can do to help more people to make positive measurable impact? I lived in Sayulita, Mexico at the time. Beautiful place right on the ocean. It was a glorious place. Really peaceful, really tranquil. Hear the waves crashing. I'd go out on the deck in the morning, get some sunlight. I had a little trampoline rebounder I'd bounce on. I'd listen to podcasts or whatever. I was doing my thing at that time. And I'd go and I'd make a green smoothie. And so I'm thinking, okay, the next program we can make to help more people. I was like, what's the highest leverage thing I can do? And a concept from one of my original mentors I worked with, Evan Pagan, back in the day. A brilliant dude. Highly recommend his stuff. He has this concept of moving the free line. And he was like, if I can sell this program, to teach people this thing, for him, he had a large dating business. He created a dating advice niche for men, for example. Went on to create a whole lot of other good things too. But he was like, I'm selling this thing for a certain amount of money, and I'm helping so many people. It's like, what if I give that away for free? And everybody in the marketing world is like, well, dude, you're crazy. You're not going to make any money. He's like, well, that's not the point. And so what he did was he took one of his best programs and he decided to give it away for free. Interesting thing happened. He thought, okay, well, if I give my best thing away, what else do I got? There's a counterintuitive switch that happened where when he gave that best thing away for free, he naturally started coming up with greater things that he could sell for more. And so the whole concept of moving the free line, I was like, how can I apply this here in my business for this that I learned from him? And green smoothies came to it. I was like, well, that's pretty simple. Let me build something. So long story short, I built a 30-day email sequence, 1 email a day for 30 days. And I was using the challenge psychology framework. I was learning in habits and changing things, motivational psychology. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a 30-day green smoothie challenge. So I put it together, and I was like, I'm just going to offer it for free. I just built a landing page, built a 30-day series of emails, put in there recipes for green smoothies. I put in little factoids and education about cool things and the vegetables and the foods and the fruits of like how it's good for your body in some way. Some motivational quotes and some inspiration in there, some things like that. Put that together, wrote all the emails, loaded up an autoresponder, and took the page out to our Facebook audience, which we grew at that time. We'd grown it to about 500,000 fans organically, with now spending a dime in advertising. And I put it out. I was like, hey guys, we're going to launch the 30-day green smoothie challenge. Go here to sign up. And we had over 90,000 people sign up in 10 days from 100 plus countries. And I didn't do any marketing for it at all other than mentioning it to our community. And that was a game changer. I was like, okay, this is landing. This is resonating. Talk about the feedback loop. The evidence leads to confidence. Like, people like this. Then we create a Facebook group and everything too. So going through that and doing that, a friend of a friend reached out and said, hey, I helped build a really successful app in the paleo community space with another influencer. And I'm in my business, I'm pivoting things, and I'm looking for people that have amazing audiences and great things to share that help people in the health world. You guys have an amazing audience. You have some great content. I'm really good at building apps. He's like, do you want to do an app? And I was like, that sounds fun. Let's do it. So we negotiated a deal. And it was the best business deal I think I've done of my life, regardless of the size of success or anything as a metric of evaluating it. It was so smooth. It was so seamless because I asked the community saying, hey, would you guys like an app? They're like, oh my gosh, that'd be great. I had all the content in Google Docs already, an autoresponder, and he took that and used that. And then I put out there, I was looking for a photographer to take pictures, to put pictures in the app. And this amazing woman in our community who was, going through the challenge and lost a lot of weight, shared it with her family, made it for her kids. She's like, hey, I'm a photographer. I'd love to do this. So I was like, cool, how much? And let's figure it out. So we made that deal, purchased the photography from her. She made all the smoothies, beautiful backgrounds and everything, took pictures, put them into a Dropbox folder, and I gave him access to that, gave him a password for a Google Doc for the content, and then he went on and he just built it. Then we launched that app out when it was complete and skyrocketed to #1 in the health and wellness category, health and fitness. That was great. I was like, wow, that's incredible. So we hit #1, getting a lot of traffic, a lot of downloads and everything too. And it was incredible to see that take off. Now, it stayed at #1 for quite some time. And then Apple reached out to me and said, hey, we noticed that your app's doing really well. You have a lot of positive feedback. You have great reviews. Would you mind if we feature you on the front page of the iTunes store? And I was like, yes, please. And thank you. And they put us on the front page of the iTunes store, and it just blew up. And then after that, subsequently, we got featured 9 times by Apple on the front page of the iTunes store for different apps that we built. So we kind of built and grew that. But that was one of the best business deals I ever did. That was way less friction, a lot more flow, because we had the content, we had the community, and we put it together. He built the app, he managed the technology and the dev. And we just, in the business, we just received checks on a regular, consistent basis, because thankfully, Apple pays out very well, and they pay out consistently, And that was really great. I'm like, right, and so we have this new revenue channel in the business that took very little energy and effort in some way, and it had a very incredible compounding result that, just totally succeeded in numerous different ways to calculate and define success in that particular way. And that really changed my perspective on a lot of things. Like, once you experience it, you're like, whoa, this is possible. And it's a matter of like, okay, cool. How can you re-engineer that and repeat that in other businesses and other partnerships and other, things you build?
Right. Trampoline and sunshine, clearly.
Definitely helped, big time.
I love how you broke that down, though. And those results they speak for themselves, right? That's incredible. I think this makes, the perfect transition to dig a little bit deeper into the wealth of knowledge. For those who are listening, I always want to talk about some tangible takeaways. There's so many areas we could go. I think we'll probably dive into about 3. But just before we do that, what are the businesses that you've built? Just a quick summary.
Quick summary. You want to start way back in time with the lemonade stand and the sage business? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah, no.
Those are fun ones. Yeah, and I can talk about it in, like, there's some that you build on your own, and many times you build them with others. You could be the founder or a co-founder in some way. You could be a partner. You can be a consultant. You can work in different capacities, help grow and scale in different ways. So my journey's been a mix of things. I built things on my own, scaled, exited them successfully, and I think I've helped a lot more in terms of working with others who have built something already and they want to get it to the next level. Seems to be a pattern I've noticed of a lot of my skill sets when I lend my energy to a business. I can help them scale. So I can help them reduce the friction points, increase the flow, and help them internally and externally. Internal team communication, systems, structures, AI, things like that nowadays, as well as external, like marketing and psychology and reaching more people, generating more traffic, more leads, more sales, whatever it might be. Improving conversion rates and such too. So it's cool because those skill sets are very transferable. lemonade stand, sage business. I worked at a bike shop and a snowboard shop, and I designed it and helped the layout of the floor and everything, and did a lot of fun stuff there. And I was passionate about that. I built a business around snowboarding, be a professional snowboarder, and that was fun. It was a lot of good times. Went on to build a health center in Arizona, martial arts school and health center, and went on to go through a series of ups and downs to then get into building, for example, with my roommate at the time, we built the Cash Flow Club, which was a cash flow game, Robert Kiyosaki's game in Arizona. And eventually we ran the game out of Robert's offices. He called us up and actually invited us to his renovated office to run the game out of there because we grew the meetup group of the game so significantly. People loved it. It was great networking. Met a lot of people there. I met a mentor of mine early on. She was wonderful, and she brought me and a few friends over to learn about affiliate marketing. And so I built an affiliate marketing business. That was early on. And that was like my first internet money. That was like the first time I clackety clack on the keyboard late at night, and then a week later a check showed up in the mail, and I took it to the bank and cashed it, and I was like, whoa, this is real. Opened my eyes to see the light of that as a possibility, to live remotely, be a nomad, travel, live a fun lifestyle, and what I kind of define as my epic lifestyle, which stands for extraordinary, productive, inspired, and conscious. And I was just like, okay, how do I do more of this? Then I got into a CRM technology at the time, and I was part of their first certified marketing automation coach trainings, first one they ever did. And I went on to bring in some other big names to that system to migrate their company to those systems and help them grow and scale in those ways, which led to me meeting Evan, for example. And he hired me on as an affiliate manager. I was trained by one of his top guys there, and I was the guy that was putting together deals and webinars and different product launches, chasing down influencers to get them checks when they were traveling in the middle of Japan, for example, or whatever. We had a lot of fun building that, and that grew to like 20 million plus at that time. We had like 90 virtual employees and live in-person events with hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. So it was really incredible to go through all that, learn a ton. And then I went on to how can I apply this to other things? So I got into consulting. It was like just an easy pathway. I'm like, it's a cool vehicle. Coaching, consulting is a really fun vehicle. If you don't know what you want to do yet, it's a great way to experiment and play. And I was like, how can I work with companies to grow them, help them scale? And I like to focus on companies that were making a positive, measurable impact, right? So I'd meet some people, like, oh, I might be able to help you with that. Strike up a deal, go through the process and everything, then get into it, and then help them make some changes here and there, and then boom, you see the results, and then it scaled. And so helping people make more money was fun and satisfying for a while. And then that's when my transition to the health space you kind of showed up in my personal life and then professional. And I went on to build Young and Raw, for example, and then that was its own beautiful journey. And then after I exited the company there, I want to try my hand at other things, right? So went back to some coaching, consulting, and teaching on health and business. And then I was like, I want to start physical products. I want to try stuff you can hold, stuff you can use, right? That, again, has a positive, measurable impact, core theme. And so I created the world's healthiest organic e-juice for e-cigarettes and organic nicotine and all that good stuff. And it was a great nootropic. I was like obsessed with the molecule. I'm like, this is a really healthy molecule that's just been misunderstood. I identified with it in some ways as a misunderstood entrepreneur and multi-talented, passionate person. So that was a lot of fun and a great David versus Goliath kind of company to build. And I also built a rapid absorption formulation for CBD, which originally was inspired by my mom. She dealt with some chronic back injury pain consistently, and CBD kind of helped a little bit here and there, but nothing really worked too long. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I was frustrated with that, and which led to the satisfaction of figuring out a way to make it absorb faster. Absorption really matters, and how to make it last longer. Extend the half-life of it. And so I launched that company, and so I was running those around same kind of timeline, similar timeline. Vape company first, then soon after the CBD company. Then the whole world shut down and supply chains got kind of backed up, and it became really crazy to get the best ingredients from around the world all to manufacturing to actually produce and sell at scale. And the costs inverted. It just became too expensive. I couldn't justify a market price to increase the price. So when it don't make dollars, then it don't make sense. So I was just like, okay, math's inverted. I got to shut those down. So those were at the time perceived failures, but again, good pivot points. So I wound those down, and I was like, okay, what next? And so I shifted more to my passion of health, and that's when I started my holistic biohacking coaching and consulting. And it's, high ticket offer, and I worked with some incredible people, just like, the difference of a second in a competition means the difference between gold or not gold, first place or not first place, right? And for athletes, that's a really big deal. Living in Vancouver for a while, I got to meet a lot of wonderful people in the film industry and connect with them and some of the superhero actors and actresses in TV and movies that a lot of people would recognize. And they have a really grueling schedule. They have to, do shoots overnight and in the cold and the rain. They got to remember their lines and wear tight clothes and, fly on cables and, be around explosions and, all these things. And I worked out with some of them. So where I lived at the time, I worked out with Superman in Smallville. He was my neighbor, and that was really great. A lot of my friends who were ladies loved coming over to hang out and work out with me when he was in the gym, which is hilarious. But through that, I got to connect with some of those people. And at the gym when I was doing the muscle hacking experiment, some others from some other TV shows were there too. And they'd struggle with certain things. I was like, hey, if you tweak your technique with this or whatever. And they're like, hey, we're seeing you progress. They're like, how are you doing this? Are you on steroids or something? I'm like, no, it's all natural. Taught them some of the biohacking elements there, and then got into nootropics and taught them how they can use certain substances that are natural that can help them with memory retention and recall. So for lines and for emoting and for a lot of other aspects, it really helped change the game. How do you manage your energy in a high stress environment at a very intensive workload? So I coach a lot of them.
No, it's not
What's
the answer. Not just more caffeine.
No, not with caffeine. It can help sometimes, but you gotta be mindful with it. So 'cause it blocks the receptors that tell you that you're tired. That's how it works. And that it's giving you energy. It's just helping you think that you're not tired, right? So which can lead to burnout. So, and I love caffeine, by the way. I love stimulants. But through that, that was the high ticket coaching practice where worked with CEOs, celebrities, founders, entrepreneurs, a few Olympians, pro athletes, a lot of people in the acting world. Built that company, was doing that for a good amount of time, which was super fun, but this is before AI. And so I did it all manually, lab work and genetic interpretation and methylation and, blood test results and hormone test results and on and on. There's a lot that goes into it, very time consuming, very high value, but very low scale. And so after that, I started pivoting into how can I help other brands grow, like e-com style supplements, technologies, and just use my skill set to help them grow and do that. So I pivoted more into that space. I did a few other companies in there. I scaled some multi-seven-figure coaching practices in the meantime too, which was really fun, taking on some challenges. Can you apply these skill sets in an area that you don't really care about or are passionate about? I'm like, well, it's art and science. And so, yeah, we can. So I took on some dares and built some high-ticket companies that way, remote sales teams, things like that. And then, that was fun to do, but then I was like, I want to go back to my passion, helping people, positive, measurable impact. And in that, led to where I'm now, which is part AI consulting and growth on one side, upgraded formulas, nanomineral technology supplements we have, and just helping people get to mineral sufficiency and test, don't guess. We have a hair test that you can understand your minerals, what you have too much of, not enough of, and how to optimize that. And it's super fun, super fulfilling. I love the team. I love my business partner. We have a lot of good times, and we're growing and scaling successfully, and we're helping a lot of people. So very passionate about that. And then, I've got a few other things I'm playing around with, of like, what could be next in some way. I always got to keep myself busy. I got a lot more to give. So I want to keep on this path and keep growing and scaling myself personally and in business, building professionally as well.
So biohacking is obviously such a passion, and just hearing you speak about it, it's clear that, you've immersed yourself into this world at a depth that many people have no idea probably even exists. But at a high level, biohacking is all over the internet, right? Everyone says, these days, a lot of people will say that you absolutely have to optimize to be a successful entrepreneur, because you have to be at the cutting edge and pushing your limits, and that, biohacking is really the only way to be competitive these days. Agree, disagree. Well, I don't think that's the topic, because we'll be here for another 3 hours. But from your perspective, thinking about, entrepreneurs, executives, leaders, people who are building companies in the audience, what is really worth it if you're starting out maybe a little bit knowledgeable, And what's best left for the pros?
Oh, I love this. So, very simply, start with your breath. Start with your breath. Breath work's incredible. Many forms, take your pick. Try a few, see which one fits. We breathe every day. Most of us are unconscious of it. Are you breathing shallow? Are you breathing deep? Right? It changes, fluctuates naturally. And the cool thing is we can control our physiology to an extremely fascinating degree just with our breath alone. Using our mind to be aware and be intentional about how we breathe. And there's amazing books, and there's there's courses, and so you can do so much on it. And go check out Wim Hof, do some cold therapy, and do some breath work, right, as part of his combo and stuff too. There's yogic breathing practices, pranayama. There's all sorts of different things. Yoga Nidra is a great one, right? If you get into meditation and mindfulness and stuff, there's a great app called Insight Timer. It has like an insane amount of stuff to choose from. So it's an overwhelming paradox of choice. But just go in and start listing some things. Do a body scan. Be aware of yourself. That's incredible. Start with your breath. That's one of the simplest ways, because with your breath, you can control things and you can turn your biology on a dime. So if I'm working out in the gym for my muscle hacking experiment, I was playing with breath work for this. If you breathe in for 4 and you breathe out for 8, you decrease your heart rate. If you invert that, you breathe in for 8 and you breathe out for 4, you increase your heart rate. And so what I do is I'd step up to do a deadlift or a squat, and I would do the one that built up my heart rate and got more blood flowing, more oxygenation, nutrients flowing, step under the weight or pick it up, and I would lift heavy. I'd go through, and at the end, I'd be gassed. I'd step back from that, after the set, and I'd flip that breathing, and I'd start to reduce my heart rate, calm myself down. And that recovery between just was a game changer for my ability to build strength and hit new records and hypertrophic muscle growth and everything too. So if you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with depression, if you're tired, if you got a high cortisol level, if you're burnt out, if you got mineral deficiencies or allergies or any number of things, you're going to breathe anyway. So why don't you breathe right? Why don't you breathe in a way that changes your biology, in a way that's supportive of what you're trying to accomplish, or changing your state? And the escalation biology of conflict and confrontation is a really interesting subject. And the cool thing is, if you just pause and you breathe, you can actually shift that chemistry fairly quickly. Sometimes as little as like 30 seconds. So if you understand that, whether it's a fight with your partner or your family, or being tired and overwhelmed if you have a kid, and it's a lot to be a parent, right? Taking literally moments to get control of your breath and wield your biology wisely. It's simple, it's easy, it's effective, it's free, easy to learn about, easy to do. You're wired for it. And it's really easy to learn, and the feedback loop is really quick. So that one's incredible. Breathwork
Better
is
reactions,
phenomenal.
better decisions, or responding instead of reacting. Better decisions.
100%.
Better actions.
Yeah, I love that. That's nuance and distinction. Yeah, reaction versus response. So yeah, be a responder in those ways versus reacting. So breath is a big one for sure. You can work out and lift heavy and build muscle if you want, but it's really intense and you can burn yourself out. Different for men than it is for women. But at the same time, most of us are overworked and under-recovered. So do it. It's great. But also, take a break every now and then. Sleep hacking is a big area of focus. I grew up with insomnia and learned how to heal it naturally in different ways. And so sleep hacking I became very passionate about. It's very high leverage. If you can improve your sleep quality by even a few percentage points, again, very high leverage area to focus on. And really easy to do in a lot of cases, right? That's a really good area. Funny enough, I got to throw it in there because it is so powerful and important and deep, and it's a whole nother podcast episode most likely, but we all have trauma in different ways. But if you've dealt with any trauma in your life, I have a background of childhood trauma in different ways, and I didn't realize, I thought I was good with it, thought I dealt with it early on. It turns out I didn't, and continue to. And it's an ongoing process. And I just found the more that you work with that and be with that and face that, wow, how much your life changes. And I recommend Dr. Gabor Mate's work as a great entry point for that. There's many other brilliant people who are working in that space. Please explore them, find them, seek them out, find who you resonate with, and just do something about it. There's many ways, find the one that works for you, but facing that and dealing with it will unblock and unlock so much of your potential that you can't even imagine as you're listening to this right now. So that's a huge high leverage one.
Yeah. And I would actually, at least from my experience, the first one that you mentioned, breath, and the trauma one that you just mentioned, if you are aware of your breathing, you will become aware of where you're having reactions to situations. And when you become aware of having reactions, you can ask questions about why you're having reactions, which is how I surfaced some of my childhood traumas. And then proceeded over quite a long time to address them and make some very meaningful changes in my life. But it's very interesting. And I mean, sleep ties into all of that. Yoga nidra, sleep. I also had insomnia. I also had just poor sleep habits and hygiene from athletics that required me to get up at 3 and 4 a.m. certain days, consulting and travel that, 18 plus hour days, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I cannot possibly agree more strongly with those first three. And I like that within reason, they are all very accessible, right? You're not talking about big treatments, big devices, expensive things, right? And that's kind of why I asked you this question as well, because the things that make headlines are often, and I'm not perfect. I've got my expensive blue light glasses that when I work at night, I put on so that I can transition to sleep better. Because again, awareness, when I work late, staring into the blue light of my computer, and then I try to just roll into bed, guess what? I sleep like shit. So, I'm not saying that there isn't a benefit to certain investments, but, there's so many expressions, a lipstick on a pig, the idea that if you've got a rusted out, broken down car and you just like pimp out some visual details, like that car isn't getting you anywhere more reliably or quickly. And so those seem like really good pillars that are, again, accessible, but they require intention. They require time. They require consistency, which really seems like a theme of this conversation in terms of success and fulfillment and health and happiness. It really comes down to that, like, intention, consistency, awareness.
Consistency, repetitions over time. Yeah. And focusing on those high leverage foundations.
Yeah. If we were just for fun to flip to the other side of, maybe the more extreme, I read an article last night about the Wolverine stack, right? And I was just like, great headline, right? Like, this is kind of my point, right? I signed up for a free trial to The Economist again, which I stopped paying for probably a year ago because I was like, I don't have time to read this, just so I could read about what is the Wolverine stack. It was great. And I knew that it was going to be not something foundational. I knew it was probably not something I'll ever try. I did know it was something probably you and one or two of my other friends would know about. So I was like, I'm kind of curious. And, I really love this world. I invested the time. But, it is a sensational thing, but just for the fun of it, what is it?
I love it. Yeah. And you talk about storytelling, everything else, right? And most people know who Wolverine is, or even the animal, right? Regeneration, right? It's helping to recover in the face of adversity of, joints, tendons, muscles, ligaments, things like that. The Wolverine stack is more about supporting your body's natural repair mechanisms. And there's different versions of it people might have, but the typical one is BPC 157, which is a peptide, usually combined with another peptide called TB 500. There's a lot of gobbledygook, ABC, ABCD, LSD, a lot of these fun things in there, right? Peptides are a really interesting, geeky world of that. But they're very profound, very powerful. A lot of times they're subcutaneous injections, kind of like, think of like an insulin injection, very similar to that. That's usually how it started out, is like research chemicals. Obviously, do your own research and check it out. Disclaimer. Make sure you get good, clean stuff. Everything, too. If you're injecting it, be really mindful about that. But at the same time, development of technology is incredible because they're actually getting like oral stabilized peptides. So one of the first ones, it may have been the first, I don't know for sure, but it was the first I knew about, was BPC 157, it's part of the Wolverine stack, being stabilized into an oral pill. And what was really cool is, people would inject it in different areas and it would help with that joint, or their knee or their elbow or what it might be. But then they started taking the oral version and it started helping to heal the gut. So it started healing gut health and GI issues went away. And when you do that, your body absorbs more nutrients, more minerals, right? You start getting what you need from the food you eat, so you need less supplements. So it's a really high leverage area to focus on. And they're very, very short acting. Peptides are small chains of amino acids, different configurations. They're very short acting, very powerfully acting, but the changes they lead to are long lasting. So if you use them consistently for a period of time, you can get some long lasting results. And speaking of the Wolverine stack, a friend of mine has a really amazing product that is a Wolverine stack. His version is PBC 157 and TB4. It's a slight variation. But that one, when I was traveling in Europe, I tweaked my knee when I was in Lisbon. Come down an escalator, skinny escalator, two big heavy bags, the elevators are under maintenance or whatever, and I was walking kind of sideways, and the lateral movement for my knee from past knee injuries, it just something tweaked. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. And like, I got all the rest of this trip and all these other things going on, these events and masterminds of what's going on there. So I got to an amazing show. It's called the Health Optimization Summit. Shout out to my friend Tim Gray. But it's on one of the most incredible health, biohacking, longevity events in the world. And he does it multiple locations. This trip, he was doing his big one in London, where he started it. So at that show, I saw a friend of mine who has an amazing peptide company. Shout out to Kyle, Level Up Health. No affiliate code or anything else. It's just he's got great products. A lot of an amazing line of oral, stabilized peptides. And his Wolverine stack is phenomenal. So I got a bottle of Wolverine from him. And the first day I took it, my knee pain went away. Not saying this can happen for everyone, but it really helped me significantly, and that bottle got me through the rest of the trip, and I haven't had any pain since because it supported my body's natural healing mechanisms to work on that and not continue to stress it. And this is a show with, I think 4,200 people, at the show, and it was it was a 3-day event, but we had some other stuff on the beginning and ending, VIPs and speakers and dinners and things like that, where you're on your feet a lot and you're walking around a lot. You're never really sitting down. I'm on the floor all the time. I'm seeing friends and vendors and other people in the industry. We're catching up and we're going around the city, exploring London, a lot of fun things. But I needed my knee to not hurt. And that stuff, Wolverine stack, just was a game changer to do that. So that was incredible. And then he asked me to test out his nootropic stack, which is the one I took before us jumping on here. And he just came out with it at the time when we were in London at the show. And he was like, hey, man, take this bottle, and if you can take 2 caps tomorrow morning, and then, give it 30 minutes or an hour, come by the booth and tell me how you feel, because later in the afternoon, I'm going on stage. And it was his first time on stage, first stage presentation ever. And I took it in the morning, and within 15 minutes, I felt it. I was like, whoa, this is this elevated clarity, this focus, but I was still intact with my emotions. Some nootropics can turn you a bit into a robot. It's one of the issues with, like, pharmaceuticals. Certain pharmaceuticals will get you the theorized result, but you lack your emotion, your empathy, and it kind of turns you into an emotionless, cold robot. And I was like, ooh, I don't like that. I like the emotions. I like feeling good things and connecting with people. So this one had this really interesting synergy where I felt like myself, just clearer, more focused, very much like the Limitless pill, for example, right? Where he's always trying to achieve that in real life. And it was really great because I went by, shared with him my experience and stuff. Then he went on stage later that day. And then, he did an amazing presentation, standing ovation. Everybody flooded his booth, sold every product he had. He was out of everything. I wanted to go buy some more before I left on the next part of the trip. And he's like, dude, I'm sorry, I sold everything. I'm like, dude, great problem to have. I'll order some when I'm in the States next, But that Wolverine stack was foundational to that process. And the industry's moving more that way. There's a lot of stuff in the industry around peptides, so be mindful of that. But when you can find good oral stabilized ones, Quicksilver Scientific, Dr. Christopher Shade, for example, brilliant genius. Learned a lot from that man over time. Big shout out to him, and his company, his team is amazing. Products are phenomenal. They have some oral stabilized peptides in liposomal form. So just, squirt, and you got the good stuff. That's a really amazing one. Shout out to my friend Jay Campbell, BioLongevity Labs, for example. He's got some of the best peptides in the world and does a lot of education about it. You can learn from him on there. It's changing the game. I had a neighbor here temporarily where I live. Some of the units around here, they rent out. And it's a couple from Canada. He's been a fitness coach for 18 years. You see him, he comes in the gym to work out and comes in the sauna. That's how we met in the sauna. And this dude is just like, he's like a Greek god. You're like, wow, man, you put in the work. You got the results. This is amazing. But he's also into philosophy and cool things. We started just connecting in the sauna, geeking out. And he started sharing his story. And he'd been he'd won a bunch of competitions in Canada recently in, physique competitions. Obviously, when you see the guy, you're like, whoa. And it was just amazing to hear his journey from doing it the old school way, the bro science way, and how depleting that is. I worked with some people in the physique space a lot too. And I just helped them do it naturally through holistic biohacking and methods I kind of developed in that framework. And then he was telling me a story of how peptides. He did all the peptides for his last round and won these medals and these competitions. He could sleep better. His sex life was still great because usually that goes away when you're in prep and doing competitions and stuff. Libido just disappears. You're very drained, very depleted, right? And you have to recover. But he was great all the way through. He managed his weight. He was shredded. He was lean. He had energy. He could sleep. He could take care of his family. He's a 15-month-old, and he's able to run his business and travel the world, So he's able to do all that, and he owes a lot of it to the peptides that he worked with, and now he's coaching other people on how to use those too. So they're a game changer. They're like an entry level before some of the crazier stuff you can do, like stem cells and exosomes and really interesting, cool, futuristic technologies and such. But peptides are probably one of the highest leveraged areas of like what's on the cutting edge of science and fitness and health and well-being and longevity. So really awesome to see the development of that in the world.
I love it. I mean, I love what you said about, headlines and storytelling. And you understand that as somebody who has built so many incredible brands and really kind of grown with the online marketing space. You said like you made your first internet dollars, right? But you are amongst the OGs of internet marketing, and that's kind of how I got to know you, was through some other friends who are also day one type internet marketing people. And I'm curious about so many things, and I'm sure so many people would have questions for you about building a brand and scaling a brand. But the angle I think that would be on everyone's mind is AI.
Yeah.
How is it changing the game? What's most exciting for a seasoned brand builder like you?
So many things, and to really triangulate and coordinate to what I find probably most useful, if you're listening to this right now. If you're building a business, there's a lot of things that are going to be very similar regardless of the type of business you're building. Legal is one of them, for example. And I've always been interested in legal stuff, but it's just like heady and crazy and dense, and I get tired reading it. I'm like, whoa, I like smart stuff, but I was more into biology and psychology. It was more interesting versus like legalese. Interesting system. But all my friends that are lawyers, super fun times and very helpful to have as friends, So I had an interesting one I can tell a quick story about on the use of AI for this, which was in the realm of compliance and marketing. And as compliance and regulations change, especially in the health and wellness industry, and many other industries it is, you see a lot of different changes in there where it's really hard to say things that influence or persuade people to, try or buy your services or buy your products in different ways, especially in the health and wellness industry, supplementation, claims and things like that that are made about things. So I had retained one of the top guys in the world for compliance, and just going through and saying, hey, like, is our marketing compliant or not? And he's like, nope. I'm like, whoa, okay, I thought we were doing pretty good and not making claims. He's like, nope, you can get sued for this, you can get sued for that, you can get sued for this. I'm like, okay, this is a huge vector of attack and a threat to the business, and I got to protect the business, and we got to figure out how to do this. I ran into a challenge, though. Paid the guy a lot of money for a very short amount of time each time we spoke, and really for him to just tell us, it all sucks, you can't run it, it's not legal. And that's his business, and I appreciate him for that. At the same time, I got a little frustrated. It's that theme again. I was like, okay, can you please tell me and help me understand what is compliant in this way to be able to market and sell this product and do it in a way that actually works? And he never really got a good answer. He never really, like, can you give us some examples? Who else is doing it? Like, just give me anything, bro. Just give me anything to work on, and I'll find my way through. I'll follow the thread. Give me a crumb, I'll follow the path. He just never really did. So, AI started, going through everything. I just had this crazy idea. It was like early ChatGPT days, like very early. And I was like, wait a minute, let me talk to AI about this. I'm like, well, if AI can theoretically consume information and, parse it, and then I can work with it. I just asked it. I was like, hey, do you have access to the SEC rules and guidelines around compliance in marketing and advertising and business? Yep, I got all that. Okay, cool. Do you have access to libraries and databases related to regulations from the FDA? Oh yeah, I got those too. Okay, cool. What about the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission? I was like, can you check about that? Yep, I got that too. Oh, really? Okay, this is cool. I was like, okay, well, if you can take all of these rules and guidelines and thousands of pages of whatever, legalese and stuff, I have this challenge, and I'd love your help with it. Can you look at my ads? Can you look at my copy? Can you look at my sales pages? Can you look at my offer or my sales script, whatever it might be? And can you tell me if what we have that we started with is compliant or not? If it is, point it out and tell me why. If it's not, call it out as a red flag and give me some suggestions to choose from. And I started playing around with it. Long story short, I ran this model for a bit, played around some prompt architecture, kind of figured out my own system for it, and then I brought it to my guy, and I was just like, hey man, so take a look at this. Is this compliant? And it took him a few days to get back to me. And he gets back to me, and he's like, hey, so who did you hire to do this? And I was like, doesn't really matter right now. Is it compliant or not, kind of thing. And he's like, this is the most compliant I've ever seen in this industry. He's like, I want to know who this copywriter is. I want to know who this marketer is. I could refer them a lot of business if you're open to it. I'm like, oh, so you're saying it's compliant and I can run it. This is the first yes I got from this guy. We're talking, probably 6 figures into investment in this guy. It's the first thing we could do. I'm like, wow, okay. So I went on and I ran it, and it converted incredibly well. We actually crushed our records. I was like, okay, there's something here with that. And so I started using AI as a legal assistant to go through and do compliance treatments on copywriting, advertising, and marketing. Our emails we sent, our text messages we sent, ads on Facebook, Instagram, wherever platform we were running, Google, YouTube, doesn't matter. Just go through, it knows it all. And so I started playing around with that. Now, disclaimer, I do hire OI as well, and the legal frameworks are there for a reason. So I would just build it with legal assistance with AI, and I'd run it by my lawyer, run it by whoever I was working with on retainer. And as long as it all lined up, I'd run it, and it converted really well. So that's like a really powerful way. So contract negotiations, contract reviews, it saves me so much time. I go through, I hire a lot of people, vet a lot of teams, internal, external contractors, whatever it might be, agencies, there's a lot of agencies. And I spent, a lot of money, wasted, probably high 7 figures on failed projects, failed agencies. They, hey, work with Tony Robbins and insert name here, and this is all great. We can get you all these wonderful results. And it's like, okay, onboarding period's like a month, and there's something else that takes another month. We're like 90 days in and don't see any results, and expenses, we keep paying the bill, but we don't see the results. I'm like, guys, come on, getting a little bit frustrated here. What do we do? And so AI's really helped me a ton in that, because you can go through and do that. Another example I'll give is for podcasters. This is a good one for you too, Alex. Is as an advertiser using podcasts as an advertising platform, as a channel. I would go through and look at podcast advertising like in other forms. You never really know if it's going to work or not, right? You can do a lot of things to ensure success as much as you can, but you can't guarantee it. But to increase the probability of success, one thing you started playing around with is doing like make good offers with podcast advertising. So we're like, hey, we're happy to spend the money, invest it with you to run our ads. And we know we got to do our end of the deal, make good advertising, sell a good product, take care of our customers, obviously. But, could we work this in a way that we're, for whatever reason, it doesn't quite break even by this time or in this way after this run? Could we do some other things? Could we try something else? Maybe mentions on social media? Could we do, another email blast or two if it makes sense, respectful of your list? And long story short, sort of put together like a make good negotiation for our contracts with podcast advertisers. And so now when we do a podcast advertisement, we've lowered our risk threshold. We've lowered our downside and we've increased our upside. And so far, everybody's been happy to do it, because they want you to be successful and they want to be successful too. And they also want you to keep coming back to run your ads on their show. And so that was really, really cool. And people are like, whoa, we've never seen this before. I'm like, you guys open to it? And, what's the legal say about it? Whatever else. They come back, they're like, yeah, no, we can run this. This sounds cool. Let's try it out. And it's kind of like no risk, a lot of reward. So, and our goal is just to get to break even. Maybe if we just break even, everybody still wins, right? But in each case, it's been profitable since. So that's another way. They can go on, but I'll pause there because those are two really, really powerful ways it's helped. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask a follow-up around, you said prompt architecture, and I think that's very important. And again, we're going to have a huge range of knowledge levels in people listening. The first thing you did was set the parameters of how you expected the AI, ChatGPT, to work, right? You were like, do you have access to this information? This information becomes the base of your expertise as this AI, agent. And then prompt architecture at its core is sort of how you ask the questions, right? Can you elaborate a little bit on
setting the context. Yeah. Setting the context is very key.
Context and then questions.
Yeah, so the cool thing with AI these days, a lot of the main models, doesn't really matter which one, they each perform different ways and they're always trying to beat each other. So play with them all, I say, just try them out and see which one works. And they'll take pole position from each other over time, right? and it moves really fast. So in the prompt architecture, that's universal amongst any model you work with. Asking the right questions, right? The quality of the answer you get is based on the quality of the question you ask. And a question, properly framed is a problem mostly solved, right? I don't know who said that, but credit to them there because it's a great one. And it's very true, and we see it now with AI. And so the prompt architecture is incredible because if you don't know, ask. A lot of people don't realize that. There are certain ways, and people are like, oh, we hack it like this and do that, whatever. You can try the workarounds and stuff, but just ask it. I will put together my best first shot prompt and see the result I get. And I'll always ask it too, like, hey, if you were to make this the best prompt ever to get this result and this end goal, like, how would you write it? I just ask it, like, how do you want to be talked to? Like, what's your language? I don't speak AI, but, I can use words and natural language processing to work with you. And it's really cool when you ask it to reformulate your own prompt, act as the world's greatest prompt architect for AI models, and how you operate. And just like, okay, cool, here's how I would do it. And then boom, it spits out this crazy thing. Like, I never would have guessed to structure the sentences like that or put these words here or these slashes or those dashes or em dashes or whatever. And it was really interesting to see how it thinks. But it tells you, it's all there. And so asking great questions, you can ask it, how do I ask a better question to help me get my result here? It'll actually help you reformulate your questions. So knowing where you want to go, the result you want to get, the output, whatever it might be, and knowing how to get there, it can help you. So chat with it, just have fun, play around with it, and you'll pick up things again as you go, and you grow with it. And the architecture is really important to understand the context. This is a really great one. If you're listening in and you have experience in your industry, in what you've been doing, we've been building, or you want to start a new business and launch something off or whatever, you don't know where to start with things, AI is incredibly helpful. One thing I've noticed is, growing up with amazing mentors and studying the greats over time in copywriting and psychology and direct response and, even scientists and, evolutionary biologists and evolutionary psychologists and whatever it might be, I know a lot of names, and I know a lot of books, and I know a lot of stuff and research and resources and whatever. I can dump it all into AI. And so I can say, hey, can you take, Gary Benzavenga from the copywriting world and John Carlton and Frank Kern, and can weave in some of Jeff Walker's product launch formula architecture for turning the sales letter sideways. And, there's this really great book I read called Irrational Animal, and it's all about, subconscious subselves that we can prime in our marketing in different situations and scenarios. And can you tell me, based on that structure, how we can design this? And by the way, can you rewrite it in a new format that's based on human design and astrology, or the DISC example, DISC? If you literally write a sales page or a landing page or any type of marketing in DISC, you actually increase your conversion, because it's also how people read, and it's also how people interact with online content in that way. So when you restructure things like that, you can increase conversion and get better results, and you can use AI to do it. You don't have to think about it as much, but you do need to put your own OI thought into it. And that was a huge game changer. So, garbage in, garbage out, gold in, gold out. So if you work on mining the gold of asking better questions, providing better context, you can take your experience, your knowledge, your history, you can take things that you remember. Some people remember a lot of factoids and trivia and everything like that. You can put that in there and draw on those things and expand upon it greatly. And so what I'll do is I'll just put all these people, all these greats, all these, resources in. It'll draw from that, and then I just work to shape it to get something that I feel or deem based on my OI is usable. Is it compliant? Is it, persuasive? Is it influential? Is it friendly? Is it professional? Whatever tone it might be, acting as if. The alter ego effect is great for AI, like, hey, act as if, this, whatever. You can have conversations with the greats. You can have a round table of mentors. Hey, I want you to be my advisory board. Can you be like Elon Musk, and can you be like Leonardo da Vinci, and can you be like Nikola Tesla, and like insert any name here, how they think and what they do and what they're known for. Can you give me advice based on these perspectives and frameworks? And from that, it's incredible, because you can just chat with it, and it'll help you in personal growth. It'll help you learn new skills. You can produce more things at a higher scale in less time. You can test more things. That's a brilliant thing. The scale of testing, reps beat luck, right? So with AI, we get a whole lot more reps in a whole lot less time. And when you compound that, you're closing the gap, you're collapsing time in that way to succeed more. And if you need to fail more to succeed, you can do that too, at a very low cost, very accessible for a lot of people in any type of business, from start to this level to that level to billionaires using it too, right? It's a really cool, game-changing technology. It's going to transform our lives. Already is. And there's a whole lot of interesting things where it's going in the future too. But for right now, play with it, have fun with it, and see how you can put it to ideally good use.
Yeah.
So you kind of talked about this, as you said, in a way that really can be applied to any industry, and building a brand and building marketing campaigns and working through that process of scaling. Your expertise is across a lot of areas, but today you're really focusing again back on e-commerce wellness, right? And well, yeah, with peptides and things. So you've gone from digital products to CPG products. You've got, those to a significant quantum on repeat. So with regards to that industry, what do you think is most critical for success?
In the health, like in the supplements industry, for example?
Yeah, let's say, e-commerce supplements business.
Cool. Yeah, it's good. It does help to narrow the focus to go deeper.
Yeah, it's okay. Like AI, I need to do better.
It's all good. We're all growing at the same time. So, yeah, when it comes to supplements, again, the nuanced distinction, I've got this really interesting knack for the integrity of molecular structures and the quality of things. There's a bajillion supplements on the market. Not all are good. Not all are healthy. A lot of them are contaminated and toxic. A lot of really cheap stuff out of China. The whole TikTok shop craze and everything too. Can be a great marketing channel, but a lot of people just get cheap stuff from China and slap a pretty label on it and put it out to reduce their costs and increase their profitability. And when you're putting something out in the world that people put in their bodies, for me, that's kind of an important thing to respect and to be aware of and to learn about, and to put out good stuff. So, like, if you're making a supplement, please make the best one you can. Make sure you get your lab testing, third-party testing, run it by a few others, get different perspectives, and just make sure that what you're putting out there has the highest degree of supporting people and helping them in the way you choose or that molecule is designed to be or that formulation is. And don't cut corners. That just drives me nuts. I've dealt with a lot of businesses and a lot of companies like that. I've fired clients in the past for doing that. It's happened numerous times where I've helped a company scale and sell so much more of their product to so many more people. They're making more money than they ever have before. Like, this is great. And then something tweaks in their brain and they're like, how do we cut costs? Let's change the packaging to something worse. That's plastic instead of glass, cheaper, lighter to ship, save on shipping costs. Let's use this other source that's cheaper and lower quality, when their brand was based on integrity of a source of what they had. It was the only one in the world that had that, but it was more expensive, right? And it just is a repetitive thing I've noticed. So be aware of that. If you're doing it, please do it the right way. Please do it with respect and care and consideration for the lives it's affecting, big time. So the quality matters, it really does. And if you put something out there, if you make an amazing product, you make a really great product that truly helps people in a very specific way, relieve a pain or help with some optimization in some way, that alone is a great foundation to build upon. It's a really solid foundation to build upon. That's why I chose to work with, for example, my business partner in Upgraded Formulas. His products are literally elemental foundations. And with the technology to be able to absorb it and utilize it, it's just wow. And I see the testimonials, I see the case studies, and a lot of my friends take it, and a lot of celebrities and influencers. We have an amazing realm of affiliates and partners and influencers who they don't just promote it in business. They take it too. Like, they use it to transform their sleep. They use it to transform their workouts and their energy or weight loss or whatever it might be. So the quality matters big time. Make sure it's not toxic. So if you're doing that, that's a great foundation. Then from there, you got to figure out who your audience is. Like, who are you serving, right? Knowing your audience, kind of classic copywriting, 101, but know who you're speaking to, right? If you have something that helps athletes, focus on athletes, right? If it's just for men, focus on men. If it's just for women, focus on women. If it's for everybody, you can't serve everybody all the time, right? The best marketing actively attracts your ideal customer avatar, and it actively repels everyone who's not your ideal customer avatar. And that's actually how you know you're doing good marketing. And your vibe attracts your tribe in that way, right? So your marketing will attract those people because you can get a lot of customers in some interesting ways, but are they good customers? Because again, if you get a whole bunch of customers, you think you're doing well, but then they're all complaining and they bog up your customer support, well, that's going to increase cost significantly there and cause damage reputation. So again, you're trying to see how these things connect and how they work. So with supplements and e-com, make sure you're compliant. It's a big one, so you can run on platforms. Paid traffic is an incredible superpower to learn and or hire. If it's very simple with that stuff. You either have to do it yourself, learn it and do it, or you can shortcut that by paying someone who is really good at what they're doing. So do it yourself or have someone else do it. And in building teams, I've worked with both ends of the spectrum. And when you find really good people to put together, you can really pour some gas on that fire and you can really supercharge your growth and scale of what you're building. And if you make a great product and you understand the person you're trying to help on the other end, and there's a whole bunch of those people, very similar, and you can scale significantly with that, right? It's less friction, more flow. Leveraging AI to test more, right? Especially with paid media these days. You can crank up UGC videos, you can crank out new AI avatars, you can, do branding and photography and design, much faster, much cheaper, much quicker. At the same time, I do have to say, still respect the OI. Still work with great humans. It's OI plus AI. And a lot of people try to completely replace everything, but it's still not quite there yet. Maybe we'll get there, probably, but we're not there yet. So what I do is I like to upskill my team and others in leveraging really great humans that are talented at what they do with AI systems. And when you find people that are open to that, you turn one people into 10 or 100. And that can allow you to save on a lot of costs, but still put out really great quality. And we're still human at the end of the day. So the levers and psychological triggers and everything are all still there. So if you can tap into that in a compliant fashion with a great product that helps people, that creates a feedback loop of testimonials and reviews and everything else. And you get the word of mouth effect. You add on affiliates, partners and things. There's a lot of ways to do it. But just get that feedback loop in place, do good with it, and it really is creating that value. That money is a byproduct of that in the whole success loop. I see a lot of dollar bills as thank you notes, and if you help someone change their life, you're gonna get a lot of thank you notes from a lot of people.
I like that. Okay, so biggest question, we're gonna just come all the way back out, I think, as we wrap up. If you reflect on your journey, and you are in so many communities, you work with so many leaders, so many founders, so many high achievers and high performers who really encapsulate that extraordinary, right? And what you said as well, the epic lifestyle. What do you think is the place where most people go wrong and hit the biggest roadblock to achieving those extraordinary lifestyle, epic lifestyle objectives?
There was an amazing post that a very close friend of mine, who's now a wonderful friend of yours, shout out to Seth Spears. He sent me a post the other day on Instagram that really encapsulated this. And I have to dig it up and maybe you can share it in the show notes later or something like that. But it's a really cool carousel post where whoever put it together has clearly been through it and done this and made the mistakes and learned from them and sees the pattern at a higher level, like you're asking here, which is digital nomad lifestyle, for example. You see it all the time. It doesn't matter what country it is in the world. People want to travel, live that lifestyle and everything too. But again, it comes with a cost. It comes with trade-offs. A lot of people are seeking community, but if they're traveling all the time, it's really hard to strengthen bonds with one. So we used to travel all over. We were a roving species, hunter-gatherer tribes, hunters and gatherers, right? And then we started settling down, and then we started growing things, and we got to stay in place because the corn's not going to walk away, the wheat's not going to walk away. You got to stay there and defend it and take care of it. A lot of really interesting history to how our society's evolved from there, for better and worse. It's really interesting, rich history. And as we become more connected yet disconnected, right? Social media is supposed to connect more of us, and it did for a bit, and it does still in some ways. Give credit where credit's due, but it's also really disconnected us at a human level. And people will keep trying to find themselves, but everywhere you go, there you are. And what are you seeking? They're a social species. Some people are cool and they just want to travel the world and fly in private jets and have fun parties and do great things and go to some cave here and hike some mountain there or jump out of some plane here, whatever. That's great. Do it. But at the same time, don't make the mistake of, the map and the territory. The map is not the territory. So where do people go wrong a lot? And that is they're building things, getting too excited too quickly, thinking that they've reached the pinnacle of success when they're just getting started, being humble in how you approach things, and being aware of the toll that things take, right? So in a traveling world, going abroad, there's a lot that goes with that. Jet lag is a real thing. You can hack it, but you still need sleep and you still need good food, and the environment shapes the organism. So if you as the organism continually changes their environment, to a degree it's helpful. And then there's a dose of diminishing response where all of a sudden it can flip and it can turn on you in some ways. And so if you travel too much, take a break. Spend a little bit more time in one place if you like to. If you don't travel enough, get out and go have fun and try it out and learn. It's a beautiful, big, beautiful, amazing world. Going to different cultures and learning from different people and, seeing how different people live and how they solve problems or how they create problems they haven't solved yet, right? In certain countries, it's very interesting. Find what you resonate with, right? But some of the biggest mistakes you can make in that way, it's just thinking you know it all, thinking you're the smartest person in the room, thinking your idea is the best idea ever. You don't know that, right? Reminds me of a fun story, Mastermind with Tim Ferriss. And he was telling us, sort of like the 4-hour work week story of how he figured that out. And he had ideas for the name of the book. But then he was like, let me test this. Let me run an experiment and see and get a feedback response. So long story short, he did some arbitrage, ran some Google ads to test different titles and subtitles of the book that eventually became the 4-hour work week. And all of his ideas were the worst performing ones. He was looking at click-through rate as a metric of success. Nobody cared about his best ideas. And he had the wisdom to understand that, like, okay, wait a minute. Everybody's clicking on this 4-hour work week one. He's like, I'm going to name my book that. Well, and the rest is history. Shout out to Tim. So, like, test, don't guess. We actually have that. It's a registered thing with one of our hair tests. It's like test, don't guess. Have the understanding to know that and be willing to take the risk. At the same time, listen to others. Stay grounded in the process. There's a really interesting study this brings up from a long time ago that they studied very successful people and psychology of them in different ways and sort of like which ones went dark side and which ones didn't, so to speak. And they're like, which ones go Jedi, which ones go Sith, especially at different levels of scale in wealth and finances and success in those ways. And what they found was having people in your life, community, tribe, it could be family, it could be friends, whatever, who support your crazy dreams and your wild out there ideas, whatever it might be, and also give you honest feedback and keep you grounded. So head in the clouds, feet on the ground. And they call you on your stuff, and they also support your big dreams, and they also know to tell you when to take a break or tell you when to pivot or change focus. And you don't have to listen to them all the time. That was a consistent one. And I noticed the same pattern after I read that study. I thought about a lot of my friends over the years and different people that I was around and seeing different journeys from zero to hero, from rags to riches. And it was a really interesting pattern that stuck out where the ones that tried to do it all on their own to prove something to the world or to their father or to their mother or whatever it might be stemmed from, right? They're the ones that they pushed through and they succeeded to one degree of level. And then with that success, they didn't know how to handle it. And it tweaks the brain chemistry and they went off the rails and they would start partying or doing substances or things just went dark side really quickly and it changed their personalities. And then the ones who didn't, who were able to scale successfully in their business and in their relationships, their friends, their family, their lovers, whatever it might be, their kids if they have them, they're the ones that stayed grounded in the process and listened in those ways and still took risks, but understood there's more to it than just being number one. There's more to it than making $1 billion or 10 or whatever they might be. Good drivers, but staying grounded in that. And we still need people. Like, we really need humans. Like, we need the OI. As much as the AI is going to change the world in a lot of ways, we need the people. So stay human, stay humble, stay driven, stay hungry, feed yourself well, go big, go far, huck it, But, it goes back to the live today as if there's no tomorrow piece, I had in the back of my iPod. Yeah. That changed a lot for me as I went through my journey. And I realized that live today as if there's no tomorrow is one perspective of thinking that at that time in my journey really helped me a lot to really give it my all. And then I started learning that it's really important to also think about tomorrow and think about the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, the next generation. And then some ancient wise sayings from Native American tribes and different places, but it's like, the best time to plant a tree is, now, right? But also when you plant trees, the shade of which you won't sit under, that is thinking multi-generationally. That's thinking ahead, right? And that's a It's a key driver I've noticed that helps at a very large scale. Why is Elon successful? For many different reasons, but an interesting one is he's able to lead people, brilliant people, in a big journey of making humans a multiplanetary species. I was like, okay, cool, let's go do this. Let's build rockets. Let's solve hard problems and build new things and literally blow stuff up, right? And that leads to discovering other things. Right. So those are some big ones to focus on, and live today as if there's no tomorrow, and take action day to day, to make a better world for your children or your friends' children or the future generations to come. Because so much of the biggest issues in the world that we're trying to solve, in a lot of ways, a lot of us are, as we build things, they come from a short-term perspective of being dumping waste in the oceans, for example. It costs so much to process the right way. Let's save money. Let's dump it in the ocean. Nobody will know. And it causes issues, right? Short-term thinking, because they're like, it's a problem for our grandkids. It won't be around in my time. That kind of thinking ruins the world. So think different. Think different than that. And think as if what I do now is going to matter in 50, 100 years, not just 10 or 5. Yeah. Practice that thinking.
I think legacy is something that has come up so repeatedly in the episodes this season in particular, and with people like you who have built these really formidable movements, companies, organizations. So it's really interesting to hear you say that. And I know one word can't encompass it all, but that was what came to mind for me as you kind of summed us up. So as we're wrapping up, where can people find you? How can they, work with you or buy from Upgraded Formulas? We'll make sure to include it in the show notes.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. After I exited my company some years ago, I kind of went underground a little bit, a bit of a mini paparazzi experience, and just kind of ducked off social media for a while. I have a lot of people ask me to return, so considering it. But for now, simplest way to contact me is just go ahead and email me. Caleb@holisticbiohacking.com. Put it out there. Got some good spam filters, so it should be good. CALEB, put it in the show notes. And for Upgraded Formulas, specifically, it's upgradedformulas.com /Caleb Jennings, my name. Get a nice discount on there. Check out the products. And, if you're curious about how minerals can change your life, check it out. We've got some cool stuff there, hair test, a lot of great products. We have some really exciting new formulations we're working on. And we're doing some cool things, and love to help people in a lot of ways with that, because it transforms your health, transforms your life, and thus you upgrade the world in the process. So that's fun. But yeah, email now. I'm on social media, but I don't post much right now. But @Caleb Jennings on Instagram, and I believe Facebook's the same as well. I do DMs. You can DM me on there too if you use that as a main channel. Use it for advertising and business and things, marketing obviously, but just drop off the world for posting for a bit until I come back when I'm ready. But those are the best ways to get in touch with me about these things. I think those are probably the best ones to leave them on.
Amazing. So just before we wrap up, we have some rapid fire questions. We've covered a lot today.
I love it.
They can be a one-word answer, a sentence, you can pass, but we're just going to run through them and then we're done. How do you feel?
I feel great. This is amazing. I love this part.
Excellent. Okay, so the first question, what's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
Trust yourself more. Listen better. Trust yourself more, listen better. You can just leave it at that.
What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
Just say satisfying is the core. Satisfying. To feel into when you're strategizing something and you test it and it works. That's a very satisfying feedback loop. I'd say satisfying.
Is there a book, podcast, or person that really just cracked something open for you?
So many.
And that's okay.
I mentioned a few in the show already, so I'll give some new. Alison Armstrong, in the domain of relationships, all sorts of relationships. That woman, her work profoundly changed my life for the better in so many ways, from regular relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, team dynamics, leadership. her work is fundamental, foundational. And shout out to Dr. David Buss, evolutionary psychology, the guy that teaches all of that and influenced and inspired a lot of other people. Evolutionary Lens totally transformed my life in most pivotal ways, very high leverage ones. Got a lot more, but I'll stop there.
What's something that you've said never again to in your business?
Never again to in business. Oh, shitty agencies.
Ooh, all right.
Just that's what came to mind. Yeah. Yeah. Shitty agencies. Never again.
Love that. And the last one, if you had a free weekend, zero obligations, how would you spend it?
I kind of already live that lifestyle now.
Love it.
Depends on season. Warm climate, beach, ocean, friends, loved ones, good food, sun, grounding, sound of the ocean, stars at night, good sleep, good work in the day, workout, sweat, something like that. Meditation, mindfulness, reading, chess, piano, talking to a friend, listening to their version of life and living. Combination of that over a weekend, that is very satisfying to me.
Beautiful. Caleb, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your generosity of time, insights, and knowledge. We unpacked a lot, and I am so excited for everyone to hear this episode.
Thank you so much, Alex. Absolute pleasure. I love geeking out with you. The synchronicities that we share in a lot of ways, just, I'm so thankful. A lot of gratitude, a lot of appreciation to you and to everyone listening in. And it's just, thank you for doing what you do. You're helping a lot of people, and I really appreciate that, truly.
Oh, thank you so much. Can't wait to do this again.
Absolutely. Let's do round 2. Let's go.
That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to peep my creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.